good evening, and welcome to The Caring View, the online health and social care platform free to access for anyone wanting to celebrate, elevate, and educate all things social care. And I've left educate to the end today because tonight's show is with the fabulous Skills for Care all around the Workforce Development Fund. But before we get started, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, hit that bell, follow us on LinkedIn, on X, on Facebook. You can watch this on our website, which is www.thecaringview.co.uk. Access all of our free resources on there. Listen to our podcast. It's really, really good. It's the DSPT at the moment. We're on episode 2, filmed that, recorded that with Better Security, Better Care, Michelle Corrigan and Fiona Richardson. Yeah, awesome. Mark, how are you? Introduce yourself as the fabulous co-host of The Caring View.
Yes, good evening. You okay?
I'm good. I've had a bit of a flap trying to get ready for tonight. I'm doing it from my kitchen today. So I've had a bit of a flap getting ready, and I've just got my headphones working, and it's very loud. So I'm going to talk very quietly.
I don't know why. It doesn't feel like a Tuesday night. It's got me all kind of thrown out of sorts and out of routine. But
isn't it bonkers? And it's so cold. Like, it's so cold. It is so cold. Emma White, locality manager. I hope I've got that right, from Skills for Care. And I know you said not to mention it, but you are a workforce development fund lead
for the Eastern
region.
Yes, that's
fabulous. Right. How are you? Welcome to The Caring View.
I'm fine, thank you. Yeah, I agree. It's a bit nippy here in Suffolk, but thank you for inviting me along. It was, a few months ago, wasn't it, when we talked about this? So, and all of a sudden we're here. So that's great. Thank you.
No, thank you very much for joining us. So I think if we take it back to basics, because I know there's a lot of managers that will be aware of the Workforce Development Fund, but might not necessarily know what it is. Are you able just to explain, kind of just in basic terms, what it is, what it means for providers?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Workforce Development Fund is been sort of running for about 10 years, and it's basically it's the main, if not the only, real fund for adult social care providers to access for funding for training and development of their staff. So all areas really. So from qualifications like apprenticeships and diplomas right through to doing short courses around dementia, end of life, that kind of thing, digital programs, lots that can be accessed actually for managers themselves and developing managers. So it's really broad. There's over well in excess of 100 different programs or qualifications that can actually be accessed through the Workforce Development Fund, and it's open to any adult social care provider that employs staff in England. So it's been running a long time, and we had about 14,000 people actually went through Workforce Development Fund to gain a qualification or do a learning programme last year. So it's we always want more people to obviously engage with it, but it's really well used by a lot of the sector.
And I mean, the list of qualifications that you can do, the courses that you can do that are funded by the WDF are incredible, aren't they? I've just we'll pop the link into the comments in a second, but I'm just having a quick look at it now. And you've got your positive behaviour support, you've got mental first aid, you've got the digital learning, but you've also got preparing for CQC inspections, improving your CQC rate and delivering outstanding care, dementia, diabetes, and then obviously your diplomas in your leadership and management all the way up through your well-led courses and everything else. I mean, It's fantastic. What's the catch?
Well, there's one little catch. Well, not really a catch, but to access the Workforce Development Fund, you do have to have what we call the Adult Social Care Workforce Data Set. So you get lots of benefits of having a data set, but I guess the biggest carrot is the Workforce Development Fund. So employers do have to have that. There is a process that you have to obviously go through to set the data set up, and then you can, once you're eligible, you can actually obviously access that. A little bit of paperwork to do to actually claim. But as you said, there's lots of courses. Yes, you do have to pay first, obviously. So if you're putting somebody through a training program or a qualification, you do have to pay up front. But there are lots of lots of learning programs embedded within what can be done, that actually you can do, print off a certificate, and you can obviously, once you've obviously gone through the process of having the data set and you're eligible, you can then obviously submit that and, you know, get your money back straight away. And there's lots of things that you can do as well, where you know, you might pay £15, say, for a module, but you can claim 50 back, because obviously, you know, you're not just paying for the module, but it's also the time to complete it. So we don't want anybody to be out of pocket, and we do try, and we've got a fabulous workforce development fund team who do really try and make it as, you know, as streamlined as possible. So so yeah, there's various ways that you can access it, depending on where you are in the country, etc.
Just for anybody watching, Emma, the NMDS, so there will be providers out there, maybe people that are new into the sector, that won't necessarily know what that is. It might not have passed their radar. Are you able just to explain what that is and kind of what...
Mark, you've just took us back in time with NMDS. Can I just say, I was like, have we just jumped into a time portal?
Well, there might be people that definitely don't know what that is.
It's a few years ago.
It was a weird night. Maybe I have gone back in time.
Yeah, we are in 2023, aren't we? Yeah. So
Yes.
I think about 2019 was when the national minimum data set finished. We all remember that. So it was replaced with the what we call SWDS, the adult social care workforce data set. It really rolls off the tongue. So SWDS. So basically, it's a data collection. It's a data collection service. So the Workforce Development Fund is funding from the Department of Health and Social Care, and the Department of Health and Social Care basically say, you know, we've got this funding, but it's really, really difficult to, obviously we want to get a really good picture of social care, and the way we can do that is through data from people who actually, you know, work in the sector and have services. So the Adult Social Care Workforce Data Set is this online data account that providers input their workforce information. So, you know, the type of service, how many staff, vacancies, all those kinds of things. And they have to complete that. Lots and lots of benefits to it. So, as I said, the biggest carrot probably is the Workforce Development Fund, but also you can access sort of discounts from training providers, you can get free resources, and there's all sorts of different things sort of embedded within that, and it's got lots of functionality. So when I'm talking as a locality manager, for example, for a new provider, maybe a small provider who's got a lot of outlay, set up the Adult Social Care Workforce Data Set, because you can put all your staff records on there, you can put all your training on there, you can sort of make it bespoke to you. So, you know, and for larger providers as well who might have all those systems, it's a really good workforce planning tool. You know, they can put their staff on there, they can download reports for CQC or the local authority, and they can also have a look. So if they've got 20 services and they want to kind of see where the gaps are, is there a service, for example, that staff are having a lot of sick leave? They can obviously then measure it and have a look and actually use it in that way to obviously try and look at trends within their services. So, yeah, it's a data collection tool, basically. And you have to update it at least once a year. So it can take a bit of time initially if you've got quite a few staff to set it up. But once you set it up and keep on top of it, then obviously you can access all the fabulous benefits that you get with that. So that's what it is.
I was going to say that, you know, initially the initial setup on SWDS, however we want to say it, NMDS, Mark, for you. You'll catch up in 5 years' time, probably. You know, the initial setup of it can be a little bit, you know.
Yeah, it can take a bit of time. Yeah.
But once you've got it embedded and ingrained as part of your daily sort of practices, we've got a new member of the team joining us. Fab. Have we got all the information to put them on SWDS? Yes, we do. Let's get that done. Perfect. We've got a member of the team leaving. Great. Where are they going? Don't know. Let's do an exit interview. Great. Let's get the info on SWDS. Using it as that sort of day-to-day management tool is actually really beneficial because it keeps you reminded of what it is you need to be checking for, and gets you money off your training.
It does, and as well, I think a really important part of the data set is the voice of social care. I mean, we've just released our state of report for obviously 22-23. all the data within that are from the providers that actually complete that data set. And without that, during the pandemic, it was used for how many vaccinations we need. It's used in lots of different publications. It's used, obviously, in Parliament, by local authorities, all those decision makers, CQC, etc. And also the funding that we see coming through now to support winter pressures. The government need to know how big is the sector, how many people are qualified, what level are they at, how many managers have we got, all that kind of thing. What does it look like? So we have we've got about 39,000 nationally. We've got about 39,000 care providing locations from about 18,000 different providers. So we get roughly just over 50% of those actually complete the data set. So of course we'd love it to be more. We have to do jiggery pokery to obviously make sure it's right. But I think that missing element for me, and I'm passionate about data, it's our voice in social care, is the more people that complete it, the louder our voice is to say what the sector looks like. And of course, as well, you can also claim funding to develop your staff and keep them. And we know that developing staff is one of the key ways of actually retaining your workforce. They want to feel confident and competent in their role. So you can do that through the Workforce Development Fund.
Just before Mark pops in on that, I think you can also use it for like market research as well, can't you? You can basically see where you sit within your local area with how much you're paying your team members. You can compare yourself and where you sit within the social care remit. And we have had a comment come in, and I'll bring it in because Emma, I think, not that I think it's beyond you, I just don't think it's part of what your normal role is about. But it's basically saying, wouldn't it be useful if the data could be accessed by able to bring further repeated data input and requests? And this is something social care experiences quite a lot, duplicating, triplicating, quadruplicating, centuplicating, if that's even a word, of data. And it's like, why can't we just have one centralized data stream? Now, we do have the Care Data Matters, the roadmap that came out in May, and I know data collection has been a part of that with health and social care and the ideas of that data collection. Has there been any rumblings that you know of at Skills for Care for making this a little bit more accessible to others, or for this data to be used to reduce the data input in that social care is doing elsewhere?
Well, I think across the board, we know there's lots of reform. And one of the things that is being looked at, and which our head of workforce intelligence, which is obviously what this data is, does have conversations, obviously, with the department about this, because we know that providers are extremely busy. They're completing PAMs, they're completing the capacity tracker, and then obviously we're asking for the data set to be completed. They all have similarities, but they all have differences as well. And I think that's the thing. It's can we get to a place where actually we just have one data set? And I think as part of the reform with obviously the care worker pathways and making the care certificate a qualification and all those kind of things, they are looking at the way social care staff are funded. So the Workforce Development Fund is pretty much likely going to change and be in a different format than it is now, and also looking at how that data is collected. But we do collect, I don't know whether you've looked on our sort of workforce intelligence pages, the sheer amount of data and how that's obviously processed and what comes from that is very comprehensive, and the most comprehensive. So I agree. There's a lot of data that has to be completed, and it is being looked at for that reason. Yeah.
I definitely think it'll be a good idea to have one centralized place. It will just definitely, I mean, you and I were talking about it, weren't we, Adam, the other day, about actually how some managers in some localities have to fill in 2, 3, 4 different data sets for local authorities and bits and pieces. And it's the time that it takes off the floor with the team, with the people that we're supporting, to actually do that administrative work. But I was looking at the State of Social Care report today, and actually the information that goes into it, and like you just touched on, actually it's a really detailed report. And I think one thing that shocked me actually was around, I mean, I don't know why it shocks me, but the rate of pay, but how actually you're able to use that data to benchmark it against other sectors, other similar roles in the NHS and bits and pieces. So I've shared the link to to that in the comments for anybody that hasn't yet seen the State of Adult Social Care report.
Yeah, thank you. It's it is a huge piece of work for the workforce intelligence team, and every year we try and kind of grow the data that we have and the richness of it, really, to enable it to be used across the board, really, in different ways. So providers can use it for workforce planning, local authorities use it more and more. I'm always getting requests, what's the nursing turnover figure, and what's the projection figures, and how many care workers have we got in this particular area, etc. So there is a lot of detail in there.
So when it comes to workforce development funds, what sort of things should we be claiming funding for, and what sort of things should we be going, oh, actually, this is probably a waste of time and money? So something that just comes to mind, you mentioned the care certificate becoming a qualification, which, great, it's fine. It's not yet, though. And actually, I don't think a lot of people realise that they can knock the care certificate on the head if they complete the training that goes alongside it, reference it, and do the observations, which saves a lot of time. You can cross-reference the work that matters within the care certificate to the training that you're providing, because all that understanding is there, and you can do your on-site observations and supervisions. And I get quite concerned sometimes when I see people charging quite a lot of money to get your team through the care certificate. We will get them through the care certificate. I'm like, if you're doing your 18, 19, 20 mandatory courses that you've got to do anyway, chances are
it's covered, yeah.
They'd be pretty much have done it anyway, as long as you've done your observations, which we should be doing as managers. But what sort of things would you be saying? I'm sat here as a manager. Oh my gosh, this is amazing, free training-ish. I'm going to go out and start booking courses. What are the best ones to start thinking about? What's the sort of best introduction to the training that the SWDS has to offer?
Yeah, I think it's a really good question because it's so vast. So I think what's really important, and as I say, we know that managers and providers are really busy, but I think it's really important to invest in your staff and develop your staff. But I really do. It's such a personal thing. And, sometimes, you can look at the list and think, right, I'll put all my staff on, a certain course. And actually, I think you have to think about the situation of that person as well. I think we were chatting before we came on, and I'm a big advocate for all staff should feel confident and competent, absolutely. But when you want to develop your staff, it's a very personal thing. So, for example, I think the leadership and management courses and training are really good. If you've got an aspiring manager and you want to develop them, there's lots of different ways that you can do that. So we've got the bite-sized sort of information modules for managers. You can buy a suite of those for £130 and claim back £550. So you can give them an introduction to some of the things that they might obviously start to experience as they develop as a manager. And develop your own sort of in-house management program. You can do that through the Workforce Development Fund. You can cherry pick kind of what you feel that person needs. But I think as well, it's really good for that specialist training and training like the mental health first aiders, for training, obviously, the positive behavioural support. As you've said, we don't fund the mandatory training, if you like. We do have what we call an essential training fund, which was set up during the pandemic. So you can actually get those elements funded at the moment for new staff and refresher training. But, as you can see, it's vast, really. And also for apprenticeships. So if you're a levy payer, obviously that will come out of your levy pot, but you can still claim for backfill. If you're a non-levy payer, obviously you can claim the 5% and you backfill, etc. as well. So I think, it's really kind of having those conversations with your staff and looking who needs development and where, and really using this to sort of tailor where you can best spend your money for the best outcome for everybody. And that's obviously for the people doing the programme and people receiving care and support. So I think it's a very personal thing. When I was a training manager, I used to spend time with people, asking them what they wanted to do. Some people want to go to work and do a fantastic job, and they don't want to do anything more than the mandatory training or the specialist training. Others want to fly and really want to, do different training opportunities. So I think it's really about making it personal and having a look through what would fit.
No, absolutely.
Sorry.
Just quickly, Adam, before you come in, You touched on levy payers and non-levy payers, Emma. Are you able just to explain what that is, just to people watching?
Yeah, so this came in quite a few years ago now. So obviously the government introduced the levy paying scheme for apprenticeships, and it's kind of evolved a little bit as well. So obviously there's a number of apprenticeships that you can do in adult social care. So if you've got a tax bill of more than 3 million, you'll be a levy payer. So your apprenticeship, you'll have money sitting in essentially an apprenticeship fund, and that will pay for apprenticeships, obviously for your staff. But through the Workforce Development Fund, you can also claim back for the 20% off the job training, backfill, that kind of thing. If you're a non-levy payer, obviously with a pay bill under 3 million, then you'll normally pay 5% of the apprenticeship fee, and obviously any associated costs. But again, you can claim that back through the Workforce Development Fund. And at the moment, across all programmes through the Workforce Development Fund, you can claim up to £2,000 per learner. So, there's quite a bit of scope for development. Obviously, it depends what you want to pay out. So yeah, it's apprenticeships. There's still a lot of people that go through apprenticeships. It's still a cost-effective way of training staff, basically.
So just staying on funding just for a little second, then we've had another, well, the whole thing's about funding is adult workforce development funds, but I mean funding for individuals. We've had a question come through, and sponsorship employment at the moment is obviously on the rise. There's more people doing it. Does any of the WDF cover for staff on sponsorship?
Yeah, this is a bit of a tricky one that we are sort of backwards and forwards with the department about this. You can't claim if they're on a student visa, but my understanding is that if they obviously working here, part of the workforce, then you can actually claim for them. But we have lots of detailed information, obviously, on our website, and we've also got our international recruitment hub. So I would definitely say sort of have a look at that. But if they're a member of staff like anybody else, then they should be able to access training, but they can't if they're on a student visa. Definitely not. And the Workforce Development Fund is also either accessed directly through us at Skills for Care or through what we call a Workforce Development Fund partnership. So it's always good to have a sort of a chat with them when you're registering to become a member to claim, as well, to keep up to date with things as well as on our website.
Yeah, no, that's, I mean, it makes sense. And there's no harm in asking, is there? I think
No.
it's always really, really good to ask. So, I'm going to hand over to Mark. I'm conscious that I talk quite a lot, Emma, so I'm trying to reflect.
No, I have got a question. So I was just looking through all the qualifications, and I think what's good with it is, and I used to use this when I was a registered manager of the care home, as you know, Emma, was that you had people that didn't necessarily want to go into management, but you were able to use it as a tool to upskill and kind of to retain staff as well, because I think there's a lot of organisations, and Adam, you and I have spoken about this in the past around, I think there's that worry that you might train somebody and they leave, but actually this allows you to put in together a really comprehensive training plan that retains people, that upskills them as well. And then instead of them going into management, they can become a mentor in that area or a lead in that area, which I think is really interesting.
Yeah, definitely.
Is there a cap on the amount that one member of staff can claim? So if somebody was, say, doing the, I don't know, I'm just scrolling through, maybe a PBS one, then they do autism, then do dementia and end of life, and then they do, I'm literally just scrolling through the page. But if they wanted to do all of them, is there a cap on the amount that you can claim per individual? It's
£2,000 per learner. So you can do that across a number of courses. What you have to really be careful about is the timeframes. So, I mean, I could go through so much information. It is all on our website. But when you're claiming through the Workforce Development Fund, you have a certification period. So, for example, for this year, if you have paid for somebody to do, say, some end of life training, and you want to claim, and you've checked, and you can do it through the Workforce Development Fund, you have to check, obviously, it's within the time frame. So if they were completing something and it took 3 months, that'd be absolutely fine. Some of the longer programs, you have to be careful when you're sort of signing up. So at the moment, if you've put a learner on a training program, You can claim for certification, because we have to have that as proof, from the 1st of January this year, 23, up until the end of March next year. Now, Department of Health and Social Care often extend that. They in all the years that I remember, they've said, actually, we'll give you till the end of May, to get people through and get claims through, because sometimes the workforce development sort of starts a bit later. But yeah, you just have to check when, obviously, you're putting somebody on programme, because you've got to obviously claim within that time frame. So again, there's lots and lots of information. It's, I say, our workforce development team do a fantastic job of making it really straightforward as to what you need to do. And we've got these workforce development partnerships as well. And you've got me as your locality manager. We're always around, if you're really not sure. So if you're doing some of those, for example, those information modules or mental health first aid, something like that, you'd be fine a short course. If you're getting somebody to sign up to a programme, say now, that's going to take 18 months, you've just got to be careful of where that funding sits, because obviously you're going to be going into other funding years basically. So often people who've started programmes last year will be claiming obviously from this year's fund, if you kind of get what I mean. So it's all explained really, really well on the website, but you just have to kind of, there's a temptation. I know when I was a training manager, all those certificates have come in, I'll put them in my tray and sort them out, and you don't want to lose them, and you want to make sure they're in the right time frame as well, to make sure that you can, because we never know from year to year whether we're going to get the Workforce Development Fund. I mean, we have, as I say, for 10 years. What I will say is, though, anybody, because of the changes that are coming around, anybody who's sort of rolling on a programme now will get what they're doing funded if the WDF goes. So we know that some people might start a training course in January, and we need to make sure, they're not going to say, no, you've joined it, but we've finished the Workforce Development Fund now. So, you just have to be careful, really, with the timeframes sometimes.
Yeah, I just want to bring this comment in because I sort of agree and I disagree, because Mark and I had this conversation over at the Care Show last week around succession planning. So train staff so they can leave, treat them well so they don't want to leave. And that was actually the title of our topic, was actually support your staff to leave you. We want to be able to support our teams to grow, develop, and disperse within the social care sector. We want to empower and grow the sector. But for those who want to stay in the positions that they're in and not necessarily want to grow into a more authoritative or a more demanding, a more responsible role, want to stay in the roles that they're currently at, we still need to develop and train them. But actually, we just need to treat them really, really well so they don't go elsewhere. And it's that development of understanding that development isn't just around people who want to go on to do bigger and bigger jobs and more responsibility, but actually it's so we can always do the best job we can at any given point, isn't it? So when it comes down to the use of the WDF and Ask WDS, are there any sort of success stories that sort of stick out for you? Anything that you can go, oh, wow, actually, I remember speaking to someone who said this was really beneficial and it helped me with this? Or have you got any sort of those positive stories to share with us?
Yeah, I mean, we've got lots on our website, actually, and we do try.
If not, make them up, because no one will know the difference.
I would never do that. I mean, people use it for different reasons. So as I said earlier, if you've got a small provider, I do a lot of work with, if you've got a new provider setting up, a lot of it can all be alien. So we spend a lot of time going through what we can do at Skills for Care to support them, across the board, basically. But when you mention, we've got this adult social care workforce data set, and you're just starting out. So as you start to get staff, start to populate that on the data set. Don't make it a chore. It's free, it's confidential. You can put everything on there. We don't see, it's all anonymized. We don't see who they are, but it's a really great tool. And, managers say, what, it's free? It's, really, where is it? How can I get it? And it's, that's really nice to think that actually you've taken a bit of a headache, away from them, that actually they can start utilising it. And then when you say, well, actually, if you get them on there and you can actually claim funding as well, really. So, that's kind of the smaller providers. But then with the larger providers as well, so they, they say, if you can get into a system with it and start using it really as it's intended. We had a manager on an event recently, and they regularly, they claim sort of £20,000 for staff training, and they said we wouldn't be able to develop our staff without it. Yes, it takes a little bit of upkeep. We've got a lot of staff. Yes, we've got a backroom support, which we know a lot of smaller providers haven't, which it can be one of the problems. But and it's really good to have a voice as well in social care. So it kind of hits many different levers really. So yeah, it's really nice when you kind of know you're talking to people and they really kind of get it and understand that it's there for them to use, and it's free, and utilize it. So yeah, we're always sort of getting on to people saying, come and tell us a bit about what you've been doing. And again, I had a couple of managers recently who as you said, Mark, it's a really good tool to develop staff. And again, it's about doing that investment, making sure they're confident and competent in what they do, but actually they might have a real interest in supporting people and being a mental health buddy. So, there's the mental health first aid training that you can access. They might want to be, dementia champion. So, they're doing it as part of their job, but you're actually giving them a bit of an accolade for what they do well, and saying, okay, let's further support you to do what you really enjoy. So I think it is really, and you're right, Mar. I mean, I speak to managers and they say, if we've got a member of staff and they're brilliant and we develop them and we only have them for 2 years, that's fine. That's fine. We've helped them on their journey. If we can't progress them within our organisation, we want them to feel as empowered while they're with us. And it's worth that development, because we know people are going to receive that excellent care, and that's what it's all about at the end of the day. So it's just how you look at it, I think, really.
I think for me as well, it's not with the document or the link that Adam shared with all the qualifications and bits that are available. It's not even just for our frontline staff, it's also for registered managers, for nominated individuals. Just having a look, there's around being prepped for your CQC inspection, how to improve your CQC rating.
They are really popular.
Around outstanding care, your digital leadership program, how to lead to succeed, new directors. So I think it could be for a registered manager, because actually if they want to go up to that kind of area manager, nominated individual, up to a director, actually it really gives you the tools and the development to be able to put that in place.
And managers often forget themselves. They do their level 5, which obviously we can fund, but they do. The CQC modules, for example, are really, really popular, as are the information and digital modules, because they're shorter. You can get a lot of really good information in a short period of time. They're cost effective. You can claim back really easily, and they're really a really important part of your service. We all know that the CQC, they're the regulator. We want to please them. So again, depending on where you are in your CQC journey, you can tap in. Whether you're preparing for your first one or you're more advanced with the process. So again, when we do lots of consultation with providers and managers as to what training and development the sector wants and needs, we don't pluck them out of thin air. Of course, they are what the sector says to us. This is what we need. This is what we want to do to develop our staff and ourselves. So it's a real varied sort of amount of different training and courses you can do.
I definitely recommend to anybody watching after the show to go and have a look at the Skills for Care website, because it's like just going down a rabbit hole. I mean, I clicked on the unit for being prepared for your CQC inspection, and then it took me through to information about new services, an inspection toolkit, workshops and webinars, how to be prepared, how to support your team, case studies. I mean, it's not just the RWDS that comes up, it's a whole reel of information that can really support. We've had a question come in. I'll bring it up on the screen. So it says, quick question for Emma. Can you also claim for e-learning modules, for example, some of the mandatory training such as health and safety?
You can't claim for mandatory training through the Workforce Development Fund. You can claim through what we call our essential training, which I mentioned earlier, which we introduced during the pandemic. So that is just the knowledge elements. So it's centred around the mandatory training around, obviously, care certificate. We have funded some of our endorsed providers to actually deliver that training. So if they want to click on essential training at Skills for Care, there's different training packages for brand new staff, no limits as well. So if you've got new staff coming through, and as you said earlier, Adam, sort of around care certificate, there's lots of different ways that you can go through and do the care certificate or equivalent, but you haven't got to pay. We've got all the resources on our website, or you can go through our essential training mechanism as well. Also refresher training for staff, and also we've got some volunteer training. So that is kind of a separate kind of fund, but it's worth having a look. That may or may not fit this scenario, but it's definitely worth having a look. But we don't. The care certificate going forward will probably be funded or a contribution. Obviously, that's all changing, but we used to, the local authorities used to fund kind of the mandatory training a lot of the time years ago, and I certainly not that I know of do that. But this is all kind of more complementary training, if you like, that you get through the Workforce Development Fund. But it's definitely worth having a look on the website.
We've had another comment. It's not a question, but I thought I might bring it in just because I think it's a really good tool for registered managers. So Elaine said, I also recommend managers signing up to the registered manager memberships on Skills for Care. It's worth a small fee. Are you able, just for anybody that might have seen that comment thinking, oh, what's that? Because you also do deputy manager ones now as well, don't you, in terms of the get-togethers? But are you able to talk about that registered manager membership?
Yes, we've kind of got lots of support for registered managers. So the registered manager membership and also our wider support offer are sort of two different things. So you can be a registered manager member. We are the membership organisation for the sector. So it's £35. You can get access to mentoring. You can get free publications. You can access courses. There's all different things, different benefits that you can get for £35 a year. And then you can also tap into our wider registered manager support. So you haven't got to be a member for that. There are certain things that you do. So, for example, if we've commissioned some particular development, so we recently did some around social media training. To access that, you had to be a registered manager member. But the vast amount of our support for managers is free. And you can go on, and you get that peer-to-peer support, obviously. You can access the registered manager webinars, or lots of all different information on there that you can access. So, and deputy managers, they run through most of the country as well. In fact, we've got the Eastern one on the 19th. So I'm also the registered manager lead for the Eastern region, and the deputy manager lead for the Eastern region. So I sort of sort all those out. And they're a bit different than the registered manager meetings, I would say, the registered manager networks. They're a little bit more structured for the deputy managers, team leaders, etc., just to give them a real kind of development opportunity to connect with other people in a similar role, but also, so, we do things like team dynamics, effective supervision. So we're doing personal effectiveness this week for our Eastern one. Some of those things that when you're first getting into management, you might struggle with a bit. So around things like supervision, around things like, how confident and effective am I in my role? So they're a little bit more structured. The registered manager network meetings, they do often have an agenda. We have speakers, but it really is a safe place for people to come together, either online or face-to-face, and say, you know what, I've had this situation this week. Has anyone had similar? Or CQC came this week, this is what happened. Or, just to kind of let off steam, really, because we know it's such a difficult job at times. So yeah, we do a lot of support for our managers and our aspiring managers.
Oh, you're on mute, Adam. Pound in the box.
And the swear box, and I'll do a double whammy. One in the swear box, one in the mute box. But it's more than that. You also do work for nominated individuals as well now, don't you?
We do, yeah. So we set that up, must be getting on probably for about 18 months or so. So we know that the nominated individual role is a different role, obviously, to a registered manager. It's different responsibilities. You might be both, but it's a different hat that you wear, certainly with the regulator and certainly with obviously staff, etc. So again, it's that kind of space, this sort of development, but also, how can I work more effectively with my integrated care system, for example? How can social care have more of a voice? What issues are other nominated individuals experiencing? Can be a lonely role, as being a registered manager can. So we do have national events and also local events as well, and they're really well attended. And we have lots of information on our website, obviously to support people through their journey. Whether they're newly NI or they've been doing it for a while. So we try and cover all bases.
No, I think it's great. I mean, the only reason I'm chuckling to myself is I foolishly took on, I say foolishly, I love my role. But I'm now nominated individual for nursing homes, but also their group quality and compliance manager. And you also do quality groups as well. And I know this because I'm attending one on Friday, which I'm really looking forward to.
We do, quality. We do, for example, we do learning and development networks, so for training managers. So much more kind of focused around, obviously what I'm talking about tonight, but a bit more detail. So we might go through our resources in more detail, for example. We have lots of sort of free sort of training packages that trainers can do in-house if they want to do some development with staff. So these networks just bring people together, and I think it's really important because we know that people really learn off each other. We can kind of bring them together, and we can facilitate that people want to hear from other people in the same or similar role. So it is really about setting up these networks, and we have WhatsApp groups as well. So if you're part of a network, there's often a WhatsApp group connected. So in between, we can share. So if I come across a webinar or some information, resources, that kind of thing, we can pop that on and say, well, our meeting isn't for a while, but have a look at this. This might be something that you're interested in. And it just keeps that connectivity. And again, set up during the pandemic was absolutely invaluable. We all know the amount of information coming out. We were always on WhatsApp, weren't we, Mark, during that time, constantly. And I'd say, oh, you beat me to it this time, Mark, putting that on. So, and they've sort of kept that buoyancy, really. And we've got in excess of 140 registered manager networks nationally. And
it's funny you should say that. I've just popped the PDF into the comments for anyone wanting to know how to find their own. There is a register that you have got, a directory even, and we've popped that in there for people to find.
We have, yeah.
And Paula Cashmore has also put that there's also a good, both Adam and I are trying to get on the screen, a good social care nurse group too. So
there is
literally a group for everybody and anyone at Skills for Care. One question I had, Emma, that I wrote down that you mentioned a while back that I think is quite important to be able to claim is that you have to join a partnership, don't you? Are you able to talk about that, just kind of how people find their partnership, what that means for providers?
Yeah, but again, I mean, all the information is on the website, but in a nutshell, it depends what local authority area your service is in. So it's on the directory on our website under claiming for workforce development funding. But because it's a massive, massive task to obviously coordinate this. So what we do is we obviously get the funding from the Department of Health and Social Care, and then we give that funding, we allocate that to WDF partnerships mostly. So if you're in a local authority area that hasn't got a partnership, then you would apply directly to us and it tells you what to do. Most areas have got a WDF partnership, and basically you contact them from the details on our website, become a member. You're in a position, you've got your data set, it's all lovely and up to date. You've put your staff through some training and you've got your certification you want to claim. So you have to become a member. They get you on their system. And then basically you send the certification and a form for them to collate. and then they process the claim for you and send it to us. And it's very quick. As I say, our contracts team are excellent. We all work with our partnerships. So I lead on the WDF partnerships. So we have regular meetings looking at challenges. How can we help people claim, that kind of thing. So yeah, it's all on our website. You just have to get in touch with your local partnership or your locality manager if you want to have a bit more of a chat about it. So once you've done that, you're a member and you're good to go.
No, thank you very much. And one last question from me, because I can see Adam's still on mute, so I'll jump in before he unmutes. An organisation, and I've done this in the past, which is why I thought I'd write down the question to ask you tonight. An organisation that might not have kind of the infrastructure of kind of a manager, a deputy senior as care workers. So I was just the registered manager, and then I had the team of care workers, and there was nobody in between. So for me, I found it really time intensive being able to upload all that data and then make sure it was all compliant and kept up to date. One thing I used was an external organisation that took a 10% cut. So they did it all for you, took a 10% cut. And then every time you upload a certificate, you literally didn't do anything. I would send them a copy of the certificate. They would do all of that in the background of the partnership. And then at the end, just invoice you for that 10%. Are there a lot of those organisations out there? Is there anything that people should potentially look out for if they're going down that route? I mean, I think if anybody is thinking of that, I can recommend the company I used to use that I think covers definitely the whole of England. But yeah, just any pitfalls for people to avoid, because obviously, like Adam said earlier, there's people out there charging ridiculous amounts of money and kind of piggybacking off the lack of knowledge or the lack of time that social care has.
I mean, I'm not really aware of any, to be honest. I mean, I know from you, Mark, that they do exist. It's not something that I've heard very much about, to be honest. I always think, as with anything, ask round, basically, and that's a good thing, isn't it? Like for the WhatsApp group, we often get people put questions on. I'm thinking of this training, does anybody recommend anybody? Has anybody used so-and-so? And you can normally find somebody has. I agree, Mark, if you haven't got that sort of back office staff to do that, what I would say to make the process more straightforward is, firstly, remember you only have to update your data set once a year. Now, it's beneficial if you can do it more often. It takes less, I won't say less time in the long run, but it's probably a little bit easier. But you do only have to update it once a year. But also, you don't have to input everything on there to claim for the workforce development funding. So we've got on our website, it will tell you what you need to complete to be eligible to claim for the funding. So, for example, you don't need to put, all the training that your staff have done. So there's certain things, obviously, on there that, we kind of ask for, sort of the number of staff and your type of workplace and that kind of thing. But you don't have to complete absolutely everything. So I would make sure that you're aware of what you actually need to complete. And if you still haven't got time to do it, but you think actually there's some courses here that I'd really like to put people through, then yeah, I would always sort of ask for recommendations, really, to make sure that you're using a reputable company and make sure that it's worth your while doing that.
So forgive me if this has been covered. I've tried to take so much in tonight from all of this. We've talked about funding. We've talked about whether there's been caps for individuals, how to apply for funding. And we talk about social care quite often with the mindset that it's care homes and nursing homes. Is this funding only applicable to care homes and nursing homes, or is it to any CQC registered social care provider, or what are the sort of restrictions to care delivery services that can apply for this?
If you pay staff to deliver social care, then you can actually claim through the Workforce Development Fund. And you can also actually claim if you're an individual employer. So you wouldn't claim through the Workforce Development Fund, but we have a sort of a very similar pot of money, which you would go directly to Skills for Care, because we get asked about that a lot as well. I employ my own staff, a big and growing part of the sector, and shouldn't be overlooked.
So just for clarification, individual employer, we're talking about someone who needs care and is paying for their own direct support, personal assistance, direct payments, that sort of stuff.
And responsible for the training, they obviously, so they can actually apply as well through a separate fund. So they would apply directly to Skills for Care and do that. But in terms of the workforce development funding, if you're a service that delivers care and has paid staff, then obviously you can claim through the Workforce Development Fund for their training and development. So, there's no restriction on that.
No, brilliant. And then we've spoken about all the networks that you've got available, all the resources that you've got available, all the training that you've got available. Have we missed anything from Skills for Care? I will put the website up just for case anyone can't Google Skills for Care. This is their website. It's Skills for Care. But it's up on the screen for you now. Is there anything that Skills for Care does that we aren't covering yet? We've not spoken about yet. I know you've got some really great work coming up around the LGBT side of things. And there's some really sort of great stuff going on there. I talked to my locality manager in my local area about this quite a lot. And I'm proud to be from that community. And I think it's great that that work's going on. Is there anything around that you want to or can discuss with us, or anything else that you've got going on?
Well, we have different sort of pieces of work ongoing all the time, again in consultation with the sector. What's missing, what do you need, what can we support with? So things around at the moment, as you said, we've just produced that piece of work. We've got, for example, we've just released the values-based recruitment toolkit. So we do a lot of work around recruitment and retention. We've just produced a positive culture toolkit as well. I'm at a conference next week talking about that. We know that culture is really, really important, obviously, in an organisation. Without that solid, good culture, then, you just won't be able to retain staff and deliver good care. So again, it's always kind of looking at, what's missing, what will enrich the sector in terms of development, and also obviously enrich the lives of people who receive care and support. So it's quite a changing picture with these kind of pieces of work. We do a lot around delegated healthcare activities. So we're doing a pilot at the moment with a number of organisations around. We know that a lot of social care do things, that 20, 30 years ago they would just be done in a nursing home, for example. Times have changed. It's not sitting having cups of tea anymore. It hasn't been like that for a long time. So it's around how can we empower staff to actually feel comfortable when they're doing these things anyway. What kind of framework can we have sort of in place? So we do a lot around equality and diversity and inclusion. All these things are absolutely fundamental. They shouldn't be add-ons. These are really, really important, and we obviously try and embed that and make sure they're embedded through our programs of work and the qualifications that we help develop as well. So even as a locality manager, there's so much going on. Even I can't remember it all sometimes. So, but yeah, it's always worth keeping an eye on the website. There is a lot of information on there, but we've tried to kind of put it into different categories, if you like. So if you are interested in, what are we doing around recruitment and retention at the moment, you can have a look and see what's happening, speak to your locality manager. If you want to deliver some in-house training around culturally appropriate care, that kind of thing, you can have a look and we can help you navigate through. And we can always do that. That's what we're here for. So, yeah.
I think it's brilliant. I think it's absolutely great. I can't believe the time has flown. Absolutely flown. Who'd have thought Ask WDS can fill an hour? It's crazy. No, I'm joking.
But that's okay. It's really great that you're enabling us to kind of showcase what we do at Skills for Care. So
it's an invaluable resource for so many, and I'm back into the throes of social care now, and actually, even myself, I'm thinking, we need to utilize this as much as we possibly can do. I'm very lucky that my organization has an internal training team and we've got group lead trainers and stuff like that. Really, really lucky, and I completely recognize that. But I still think that these sort of resources are essential and invaluable. And I also, not to take away the focus from Skills for Care, I also think look at your local authorities and your ICBs, because chances are they've got training hubs as well. I'm Lancashire, South Cumbria, and we have the LSCT hub. It rolls off the tongue now. I'm used to seeing the LSCT hub, and they provide us so much clinical training for free, catheterization, venipuncture. They do so much for free. It's incredible. And it's like, utilize what's in your local area for free and get it and upskill your teams and train your teams, refresh your teams. They're bound to stay with you that little bit longer. Mark, have you got anything you would like to add?
No, I think you've summarised it really well. I think the only thing for me, though, would be that I know you touched on it, Emma, that if we don't use the money that's available, obviously that's reviewed annually, and actually any money left over, the cap then comes down each year. So it's really important, actually, if you're not utilising it, to make sure that you get an account and you get it up to speed. When is the cut-off for the funding this year, Emma?
So you have to have any claims for funding in by the 28th of March. As I say, the Department of Health and Social Care usually extend it to the end of May, but we won't find out for a little while if they will. But as I say, going forward, we're not quite sure what this space will look like in terms of funding, because there's such a lot of change, really. So, but as always, yes, this funding, if it doesn't get used, will be lost, and it's such a valuable source, obviously, for a lot of providers, because it's it's got everything they need there to actually tap into. We've got all the tools to say, this is what you need to do, then utilize it and speak to us, how we can help you do that. And just on your point, Adam, I think we do a lot of work around obviously integration, and a lot of work around working with other people. It's really important to work in a collaborative way, because there's so many different things that you can tap into. As you've said, if you've got a really good relationship, obviously, with your local integrated care board, for example, then that's another way that you can tap into maybe some things that we don't fund, for example, like the clinical skills. So we do a lot of work, particularly like with aspiring managers and registered managers, about make yourself known within your system, so you can utilise, what is available, because, social care doesn't get anywhere near the amount of money, obviously, as the National Health Service. So, health. So it's really important.
Well, look, Emma, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
I hope everyone's going to go out and start claiming loads and loads and loads and loads and loads and loads of money now. Think of your training as an overdraft. Yes, you need to put that money in first, but actually you'll get it all back at the end, and then you can spend it again, and then you reclaim it again, and then you spend it again, and it's perpetual training funding. It's it's just never ending. It's once you've put that initial investment in, you can just keep claiming it back and spending it, claiming it back and spending it, and you can account that into your budget. I think it's super, super useful. I think all of the work that Skills for Care does is super, super useful. Get yourself onto those networks. I will say I was at my NI meeting for the North. I think there's only 30 people in there. And the Northwest, there's thousands of providers. So, there must be hundreds of nominated individuals out there. So really, we need to be utilising and getting the best out of that as much as we can do. Go put your training forms in. Are they training forms, training claims?
Yeah.
What's the right word?
Form that your partnership, or if you apply directly to us, then we'll help you with what you need to complete. Very, very straightforward.
Very good. So www.skillsforcare.org.uk. Don't forget to go to www.thecaringview.co.uk to find out all of our free resources, our podcast episodes, our chat show episodes, our supplier listings. I think we've got about 18 suppliers now, I think, Mark, on our supplier list, and they're all providers that we know quite well. We know these people, we catch up with these people, and we work with these people. So we know they're pretty much tried, tested, and trusted within social care. And don't forget to get subscribed and get signed up for next week. Mark and I are duoing it next week. Mark and I are going to try and behave and do the show on our own. We have to behave when guests are here, but we will be on our bestest behavior next week. Yeah. And we are discussing getting ready for the new CQC framework. What the heck is happening? What is changing? What's staying the same? What should you be doing? What should you not be doing? And actually providing you with some really practical tools, tips, and resources to help get prepared for the new framework when it eventually comes into play. 19:30 as always on Tuesday next week. So until then, everybody take care, stay safe, and have fun.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Emma. See you later.
Bye. Take care.